Today on The State of Us, bad commutes, costly childcare, the $200,000 job, and manufacturing in China? Yes or no? There's a lot going on in the economy right now, from bad commutes and costly childcare that are keeping workers at home, from U.S. manufacturers seeking China alternatives, and if you're looking for a job that pays $200,000, some of the biggest companies might have an option for you. We've got a lot to discuss. Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined today by the one and only, your friendly redneck liberal and the senior resident historian here at True Chat, Mr. Lance Jackson.
Going to take a look at the economy. Throwing it out there. I'm getting a little bit upset with prices going up 30%, and I'm told on the news that it's 7% annual inflation rate. What in the world's going on out here in the economy? So we're going to do an economic issue. I've got a phone call to make when we get done with the show. So
okay.
There's one bill in particular that's just really raised my ire this weekend with 30% cost increase. I understand there's inflation, but where's the 30% coming from?
Yes. What's still keeping American workers out of the office? At a time when restaurants, planes, and concert arenas are packed to the rafters, office buildings remain half full. Thinly populated cubicles and hallways are straining downtown economies, and bosses say fragmenting corporate culture as workers lose a sense of engagement. That's according to an article in the Wall Street Journal. And they cite basically four primary areas: escalating expenses, parent trade-offs, emotional labor, and lost productivity.
Interesting.
Which of those piques the most interest? What should we start with?
Go with the last one.
Lost productivity.
There we go.
The longer the commute, the less likely workers are to return to offices. Ryan Koch, a Berkeley, California resident, went to his San Francisco office 2 days a week as required late last year. But then he let his attendance slide because commuting to an office felt pointless. I'm doing the same video calls that I can be doing at home. Koch, who works in sales, said his non-attendance wasn't noticed so long as his numbers were good. When Koch and other colleagues were unable to meet sales quotas in recent weeks, they were laid off. Ignoring the in-office requirement probably didn't help, he said, adding he hopes to land a new hybrid role where he goes in 1 or 2 days.
Well, I mean, it does make sense. There are jobs, right? There's not a lot of them. I don't even know. I don't have a percentage. There are jobs that, okay, I can do the same thing on a computer at home that I can do as on a computer sitting at the desk. Then it just becomes like it was in that gentleman's case. Didn't meet the quotas. So, if you're in sales and you don't meet the quotas, you don't have a job very often. Doesn't matter where you do your job. I do think, though, there is something with older bosses who want to see their workers sitting in their cubicles. There's a sense, air quotes there, that more work is getting done because they can walk through the office and see their workers. The reality of that, they don't know whether or not they're playing Candy Crush or Tetris because they're not looking over the top of the cubicle, but standing in their office and looking out over 20 desks and seeing them all filled probably gives them the boss a sense of more work is getting done instead of 18 empty desks and, 2 people sitting there at a desk doing the work and 18 people working at home. I mean, I understand why bosses feel that way, but by the same token, if you're looking at a long commute to go to work, obviously that's cutting into the amount of money that you're making at the job. So if you are having trouble finding workers, you probably have to give in on that if the job could be done at home.
Right.
Because who wants to spend, with the cost of gas or even public transportation, who wants to spend the money that they're making just getting to work if I can do it at home?
Well, and the other side of that is if you received an attendance requirement and it didn't seem to matter that you were missing it, but then something else in your job slacked, now it becomes again, one thing maybe is not a huge deal because like, oh, well, they're not listening to this, but their performance isn't bad. Well, but now we missed a quota. Like, yeah, you're not going to be at the top of the list to keep either. So whether or not you think it's right, is a whole other thing. I also think it's hard because we've talked about this before with remote jobs. It's not a one size fits all. There are definitely jobs that benefit from in-person work. There are definitely jobs that can be done just as effectively remotely. And I think a lot of that depends on the person and the position, and unfortunately that makes it very difficult for companies to adopt company-wide policy. There are plenty of office jobs that I think are highly collaborative, that in-person give and take and being able to talk to your colleagues is very important. There's also lots of jobs I've seen where it's like that person doesn't need to come in because they talk to like 2 people and it's at lunch and that's it, and they're not, the collaborative component is not doing any benefits, So again, that's where I think it's so situational that's part of what companies are struggling with is just a consistency of they want to, this is the policy. And it's like, well, but depending on what job you're in, that policy may or may not work. And the other thing is when you're doing these hybrid things, which he mentioned, the problem is then your employees are coming in the office, but it's not necessarily a given that the people they need to see are going to be there on the days that they're going to be there. So this whole notion of we're going to bring them in to get the collaboration going. And then, well, but I come into the office so that I can do a video call because this person's at home today.
Right.
Which the companies would say the solution is, well, just make everybody come back to work and then we don't have to worry about that. Or the other side of that is maybe we need to do a better job with scheduling and be clearer about, well, you can't just pick whatever 2 days a week you want. Everybody's going to be in the office these 2 days, and then these other 3 days, everybody works from home. And that way everybody's on the same page about, if there's a meeting, it should be on these 2 days. There's no reason for it to be on one of those other 3 days, because there's actually a lot of good indicators that show that some of that stuff might actually be effective and you might get people to actually show up on the days they're supposed to and the days that they're not supposed to avoid the meetings that waste a lot of time to fill in, space in the day. So anyway, next thing, we could go a long time on that. Emotional labor. For some, coming into an office means donning a so-called mask to fit in. So Kenneth Thomas, 42, said he left his investment firm job in the summer of 21 when the company insisted that workers return to the office full time. Thomas, who describes himself as a 6'2" black man, said managing how he was perceived, not slipping into slang or inadvertently appearing threatening through body language, made the office work day exhausting. He said that other professionals of color have told him they feel similarly isolated in certain white-collar jobs.
Well, that's interesting. I really guess I can't speak to that because I'm not in that situation. Other than if you're working a job in person, isn't that just part of it? Maybe not to that nobody looks at me and thinks these things, but I still have to watch my mouth. Even as a school teacher, I couldn't walk into the teacher's lounge. I could, I guess, and say whatever I wanted to say.
But you might not keep your job.
But I may not keep my job, and I certainly would have hurt, the collegiality of the other teachers.
Yeah.
Do you know the kids saying that you're a moron because you haven't graded a test that was taken 2 weeks ago? So really, what good's the feedback at this point? And so you always have to kind of watch your mouth when you go back to work with other people, with any job. And I know I scared the heck out of people because I was wearing, high top tennis shoes with bow ties. And so, but that's not, I'm not a big, huge, black man or Asian.
You're not 6'2"?
I'm not 6'2".
Okay.
I was just intimidating because of the bow tie. They didn't know how to handle that. So no, not to make fun of it. I can understand that. But I think that's a little bit of a cop-out because we all have to watch how we look and what we say and the eye rolls and everything else when we go to work.
Being a remote worker, I don't think necessarily really fixes that either because, on the one hand, you could say, well, if we all go remote, then everybody can just, communicate digitally and then nobody will get judged off of, this stuff.
There is that.
You could say that, but then we didn't really build understanding. We just removed an obstacle to judging people. So really, we're not making ourselves any better at not judging people. We're just making it easier to not judge them. And those are not the same thing. And that's not really what we should be aiming for. I don't think that. It seems like the goal should be higher than that of, let's avoid the prejudgments in the first place rather than make it more complicated to make the judgments. Let's just not have them exist, So anyway.
So what about the high cost of childcare?
Yes, parent trade-offs.
It's been a long time since I've had to pay that bill, but I hear it's extremely high these days.
Yep. Well, when Megan was looking for a new job, and she's the mother of an 18-month-old son, she weeded out job openings with strict in-office policies. Were she given such mandates, she said she would consider becoming an independent consultant. Ultimately, she did find a job that worked for her, but it took quite a while because after weighing the costs of childcare, which another parent did, who is a 25-year-old mortgage loan assistant, she estimates that she spends $2,100 on childcare and $450 on gas monthly now that she's working up to 3 days a week in the office, where before neither of those expenses were zero when she was working from home.
We've done shows on this and talked to some of the experts, and one thing as we enter this phase where women are becoming a majority of people in the workforce. Yes, people, that is a thing now. That is a fact. Women are becoming more and higher wage earners in the home. That there are some companies, those really proactive companies out there, who have said, you know what? One of the fringe benefits of working for us is to offer a daycare center on site for our employees, for our preschool age kids. And those, if I was running a business these days, I think that would be right up there with the healthcare package that I offered. If I really was interested in getting the best qualified workers to fill the positions I needed filled. And even if you have them subsidize it and pay for it a little bit, just like you do your health insurance every month.
Yep.
I that makes sense to me. Especially if you want to get people back to work in the location, right?
Yep.
And the other thing we've been reading is there's tons of office space available in many of these major metropolitan areas. So there's a lot of empty office spaces. So why can't you designate one or two, to a childcare area? You have a playroom and a nap room. You're set. And maybe you have to limit it on size, based on the number of people. But
there's more options to be explored than are being explored. And this is a major thing that's holding people back. Instead of just saying,
you have to come back into work. Yeah, well, I'm sorry you got a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. That's your problem.
Yep.
Fix it or you lose your job.
It's a bigger conversation, too, about we've discussed, before, the notion of paid parental leave and what we want to do around that. But childcare holistically is a huge thing. And there's a reason, folks, right, that the Committee for Economic Development in Washington, D.C., as one of its primary policy areas, studies early childhood education, because they believe, not just believe, they have the data to show just how important it is to the economy that that's addressed, and the major productivity setbacks that we experience if we don't address it. So let's look, Lance, at maybe what you need is one of these jobs. Maybe she has one of these jobs that pays $200,000 a year.
I never made that money in my life.
Well, we're going to tell you the companies
I worked for a decade to make that kind of money.
Where you might be able to. So keep it here on The State of Us and find out where you can make $200,000 a year. Compensation for the median worker at 278 companies in the S&P 500 was higher in 2022 than in the year before, according to the Wall Street Journal's analysis of data collected by MyLogIQ. About 100 of the Fortune 500 companies said their median workers' pay rose 10% or more, roughly the same number as in 2021. So most S&P 500 companies say that their pay has gone up. And if you want a job that pays $200,000 a year, there's some companies that you might want to look at. One of those is Facebook. Median worker makes almost $300,000 annually. Google parent company Alphabet, which has the highest paid CEO in the S&P 500, slipped to third after topping the list last year. Both technology giants have announced plans to slash jobs. VICI Properties, they're a real estate investment trust with a portfolio of casinos and hotels, had the highest paid median worker at nearly $415,000 annually. Their median worker.
They base their calculation on 22 employees.
Yeah.
So not a very big company, not a lot of job openings there. There's only 22 workers.
Yeah. Since the tens of thousands of hourly workers at its properties are employed by Caesars Entertainment or other companies, the median workers at Caesars paid around $36,000.
There you go, right? Tens of thousands of hourly workers making $36,000, and you have 22 people who make an average of $415,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And the ones who are right there behind them, right? Facebook or Meta and Alphabet are both in the process of laying people off. So I guess getting a pay raise is a good thing if you keep your job. But as we see, when some people get pay raises, other people lose their jobs.
So as far as pay above $100,000, overall, slightly more than a third of the roughly 450 companies in the journal's 2022 analysis said that their median worker was paid at least $100,000, a percentage that was little changed from 2021. That list includes tech giants, as long as some other white-collar-based workforces. Energy companies, which recorded the biggest shareholder gains in the S&P 500 in 2022, made up 5 of the top 20 companies with the highest paid median workers. And the oil patch was led in 2022 by Valero Energy, where the median worker got about $209,000, up 6% from 2021. That was nearly as much as the median worker at Netflix, who took home roughly $218,000 last year, up 8%.
Who's Netflix paying $218,000?
Well, that's what I wanted to know.
I mean,
who is making $218,000 a year at Netflix?
Maybe I shouldn't worry about whose code I'm using to watch a show. I mean, if they're making $218,000, maybe
they got to be able to keep paying these people for $218,000.
I mean, but what do they do? I mean, I'll apply for that job. What do they know that I don't know? That they're worth $218,000 a year.
Well, they might be computer coding, you know.
Yeah, that would do it.
You wouldn't be much use at
that one. No.
If they need somebody to beat up the computer, you'd volunteer.
I'm
for
right
that.
there, you know, or I can take the dust rag and clean it off for them.
Clean it
morning.
off. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can also be a quality control person. I could sit at a computer and push the button and stream the show and see whether or not it's worthy and write a review of it. I don't know. I mean, that just seems like, again, only one of them reported how many workers are involved in this, right? And we know how you feel about median workers anyway. And but it's really nice that those people that are making the kind of money I made, the median workers $50,000 or less, changed. Very little change for them.
Not much change there, huh?
Nope. And that list includes the retailers, the restaurant chains, cruise operators, and other businesses with large numbers of hourly or part-time workers. So those of us who make more of that kind of normal pay, $50,000 or less, we didn't see a raise. But the people making more than $200,000 saw on average 10% raise. Not that there's any problem with the haves and the have-nots in the United States, folks. Not at all.
So what do we do about that, Lance?
It's not this show.
too much.
I got thoughts. I got thoughts.
I got things I could say, but, you know, I get in trouble.
Well, I mean, again, it doesn't say who these people are, you know, of course, and then the energy people, right? I mean, daggone it. Valero Energy, where the median worker got $210,000, up 6% from 2021. Folks, those are gas companies, right? $3.50, $4.50, $5.50 a gallon. and people are making over $200,000 at these companies, again, not to sound, but now I'm getting more of my redneck voice going. Why are gas prices so high? I mean, they're making huge profits. If they're making huge profits, the prices don't have to be that high. I understand there's federal tax, there's state tax, there's local tax on every gallon of gasoline. I get that, okay? But the baseline is they're making $210,000 a year, their average worker. Why are we paying that kind of money for a gallon of gas? And I know you don't care. You're sitting over there with your electric car and plugging it in, but I know what electric costs are. Okay, you've got your solar energy panels. But for the rest of us, this is real stuff, okay?
For other people that weren't on the train.
Nothing upsets me more than when I get up and I see that crude oil prices are down 3%. And I go by the gas station and prices have gone up 15% overnight.
Does that happen a lot?
It happens a lot. A way lot. Like right now, they have not come down like they should based on the price of crude oil.
Yeah.
Wait, you have to heat all these buildings. So you ought to be concerned about this too. I'll find some aspect of your life where you need to be that'll touch you a little bit.
Well, we're talking about manufacturing in the next sector, and if you can't manufacture the solar panels, then that all hampers the process. But you see, for me, I already have the solar panels, already have the electric car, so those I don't. The only way I feel those things are through other people. You know what I mean? But I don't feel them directly.
Well, feel my pain, okay?
Okay.
Because it makes no sense for the price of crude oil to go down per barrel and then go to the gas station and it's up 10 or 15%.
Well, they have a surplus supply they're drawing down on.
Now it makes sense to me, right? That's why they can pay $210,000 to work in the energy.
Well, you had the wrong job. You should have gone to work for Valero, I guess.
Oh, I understood that. My daughters went to a small college here in the Midwest, and they boasted for 8 years because I wrote them a check. Mm-hmm. Every year for 8 years for my daughters to go to school there, back to back 4-year periods there. How much the median income of graduates made. They had a petroleum major on campus. And those people graduated, and the teacher was making $32,000 a year. And these guys and gals were going into West Texas and signing bonuses, making over $200,000 a year. And this was, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
So, it really makes your college look good if you have a petroleum program and those young people get their diploma and go get a job making all kinds of money. Then it makes raises the standards of your humanities classes.
Yes.
That's what you don't like about median.
Right. Well, because it doesn't capture it. Well, it's like that company that had 22 employees. Well, you could have had the boss, who was making $10 million a year, and the other 21 people who were all making $50,000 a year, and the median would look tremendous. Wow, look at that. Isn't that? No, So
okay, so people are looking to stay home because they're not getting paid enough. But if you work in the oil industry or technology, you can make a lot of money unless you're getting laid off.
You might be okay then. Yeah. Technology and oil, baby. Apparently that's where it's at. Now, if you work at Walmart, not so much. But we're going to talk about manufacturers up next, because a lot of U.S.-based manufacturers, or U.S. headquartered manufacturers, I guess I should say, are seeking alternatives to China. What does that mean for...
About freaking time.
About freaking time. And just like that, when you were, talking about oil and stuff, and see, every day, folks, here's the lesson on the State of Us, right? We could go from one segment to the next, and we could have upset our stereotypically conservative audience or our stereotypically liberal audience. Either way. So that's why you have to keep listening, because you never know what's going to come up in the next segment. Keep it here on the State of Us, and we'll be right back. Fears of military conflict and increasing security worries have some U.S. manufacturers reevaluating their reliance on China. According to the Wall Street Journal, executives are plotting alternate supply chains or devising products that can be made elsewhere should China's hundreds of thousands of factories become inaccessible. That prospect became more conceivable, they said, after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine prompted companies to sever ties with Russia, sometimes taking huge write-downs. So U.S. companies were further rattled after Chinese authorities recently questioned workers at Boston-based consulting firm Bain & Company and raided the Beijing offices of Mintz Group, a due diligence firm based in New York. The government has also barred major Chinese firms from buying products made by U.S. semiconductor company Micron Technology, citing national security risks. So, a lot of different things going into this.
You mean somebody found out China might be a player on the world stage and we should be worried about them?
Nah.
Wow.
Nah.
Way to wake up, government. Sorry. I'm really not. I mean, come on.
It's okay. Tell us.
They're run by a dictatorship. They manipulate their economy and their money so that they can hurt other economies so that they can become a world power. What about this don't you get? Oh, you mean they suckered their way in here and we thought we were using them when the whole time they were using us to buy their cheap products so that they could become a big industrial power and be a player in the world? And we in turn said, well, we'll take all your cheap products and put them in Walmart and go buy them. Oh, but now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, they have a dictator for a leader, and all he's interested in is making China a world power. And they've taken all this American money and turned it into a military force that is a threat to be reckoned with. Okay, where have you been for the last 30 years? Yes, that's what they've done. I mean, that's what they know. That's the one thing. They're not hiding it. It's there to be known. We just looked the other way because we could get cheaper products and that made us more money. So as long as we were making more money, we didn't care. Now, all of a sudden, we find a balloon or two over the air. There's possible drones. They're cracking in through technology, coming into the American banking system. And we're like, oh my God, China's a problem. Okay.
Okay. Well,
glad everybody caught up to it.
I mean, do
you understand? Communist, right? They have a different set of government. They have a different set of rules that they run their country by. And they have, so why should it surprise you that they're trying to take us down? And oh my gosh, now we have to we should be doing something. We should have been doing something 20 years ago. But no, wait a minute. Then you have Bill Gates and all these other mega billionaires that are going over there, Elon Musk, and saying, oh, but we can't make China mad because there's billions of customers over here that we have to be able to sell to.
That is what they're saying. Interesting that the top executives at companies that want to keep those market shares, right, are, but it's a two-pronged thing because on the one hand, they're saying, well, we want to keep good relations. I got Justin
smiling, folks, because I must have said something good there.
On the other hand, it's, we keep good relations, but let's also maybe secretly develop some plans, or not so secretly, in some other places. It's sort of a two. Well,
there's no secrets because they're spying on us.
Well, yeah.
So we're not doing anything secretly. If we say it's secret, it's not.
If you and I know about it,
yeah, it's not secret.
Not secret.
I know China knows about it.
Well, China listens to every episode that you do.
Probably.
They're very interested in your perspective. You heard that crazy American over there talking about all this? He doesn't know.
They don't give two hoots or holler about what I got to say.
They're not worried about it. But I think it's interesting how we're kind of seeing two messages from companies. Because on the one hand, you are seeing some executives saying,
we need more semiconductors, right? I mean, the cars.
Yeah.
Right? We can't build enough. I mean, this was a year ago. We can't build enough cars because we don't have all the little pieces and gadgets and gizmos that we need. So we need to open up those factories in the United States. Right?
Right.
Wouldn't that be said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But now we've got the bigwigs going over there and saying, well, we can't bash on China too hard because we got a place to sell our goods.
I mean, tell me if I'm crazy, right? But didn't we, back with Russia and China, decide on basically a policy that was, we will let society push them more toward democracy by giving them business type stuff from the West, and that will make it all better. Because if we give Russia McDonald's, they won't invade Ukraine. And if we give China Disney World, then, they won't hate us anymore.
Yep, that's what we did back in the 1980s.
Okay. Gotcha. So I'm not crazy, right? I am remembering, history here, right? We sort of developed this policy of we'd assimilate them via business rather than by saying that they have to play by a certain set of rules that we want them to play by.
And we'll let them into the world market.
Right.
And we'll let them trade their oil and their raw materials, and we'll take their products off their hands and sell them in our country.
And what has happened since we've done that is
they'll fall in love with the American dollar.
Right.
And then they'll fall in love with the American way of life.
I see. Okay.
That was the plan.
So lots of U.S. businesses have opened in those places. But, I guess, I don't know. It seems like at least on the Russia front, it hasn't worked very well, given that,
one person.
They're led by
one person.
Yeah.
But we let one person come back into power.
Mm-hmm. Because they were trying.
And he's dragged, great. And they
were making headway.
And there are people in Russia who don't want that one person to be in power.
Oh, there are.
And they're mysteriously dying and disappearing on a daily basis.
Strange how
but you don't hear that in the U.S. media. Conservative or liberal. No, nobody's talking about it. That Putin's taken out his adversaries and has been for the last 10 years.
Well, they don't do that in China, Lance, do they? Well, no, they already took care of all of them. So that's no, they still do it.
Well, they also do it in the Middle East, but we can't say anything to them because they provide us oil.
See, I think
the Saudis are our friends.
Do people forget that technically speaking, China, the only reason China is a communist government is because the Communist Party, quote unquote, is in power. But the way their government's reflected is really whatever party is in power decides, the structure within their democracy. I'm using air quotes there, within their republic, what structure it takes. And I know that a lot of people, they were just like, that went, way over. I don't freaking care. But this is the point of they wanted to be a democracy in language and in government style. And then what they did is they said, well, we'll just make sure that one party, the Communist Party, is so powerful that nobody can take it down and we'll get rid of all dissent. So,
look up
and then we can do whatever we want.
Look up Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to open it up and we're going to have, freedoms and everything else. And the students build ice statues and everything else of the Statue of Liberty. And how's it responded? Oh, they bring in the tanks and run over the kids who are asking for freedoms. That's China, folks, right? All those little, flip the tag on your shirt and inside of your shorts and read where it's from. That's the kind of government you're supporting, who doesn't want freedom and democracy. And when they were faced with it, they called out the tanks and had the tanks run over the college-age students who were asking for support. And what did the United States do? We just took one finger over our index finger and said, that wasn't very nice. Why? Because we were trading billions of dollars worth of goods with China. And wait a minute, what are they doing with Taiwan right now?
Well, you and I have been talking about that, have we not?
Not in a while, but yes, we did.
Well, and how much were we covering on Hong Kong while all that was going on? You know, but who cares? I mean, that's part of the problem, folks. You're listening to this show.
The goods are coming in. The goods are coming in. Prices are down at Walmart. Got to stretch my dollar because of, this 7% inflation rate. So let China do whatever it wants to.
I mean, okay, great that we're bringing, great. We're insulating ourselves with manufacturing from China. That doesn't make China go away. They've made lots of investments in other areas. We can ignore Russia. That's not going to make them go away. I don't know if you noticed, but if we ignore them, they probably already would have taken Ukraine. Well, we don't care because, what do we get from Ukraine? Nothing. Well, But it's not where it stops. That's that whole you give an inch, they'll take a mile. That is what they will do.
We've talked about it on this show for years. China is comfortable playing the long game. They'll outweigh us.
Mm-hmm.
If we let our guard down, they don't care when they become a world power, as long as they eventually become a world power.
They're willing to pay the waiting game. And remember, we've heard about how the Earth was shaped by glaciers, right, at the end of the last ice age. Glaciers, they've talked about some of them right now, Lance, that still exist, and they're moving really fast. They're moving, guess what, a couple inches a year. So if we keep giving those inches, the whole face of the Earth can be changed. And that's, folks, the biggest danger to China or a Russia or anybody like that making a play for world power is not that it will happen overnight. It's that we'll wake up one day and realize that it already took place and that it's too late. Well, because the people who make the decisions and the folks with all the money kept making money. And to them, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? They don't. As long as they're on the side of the people with the access to the button, they don't care. And even if they're not, they really don't care because they own places they can go no matter what. Their money's divested over multiple different asset groups. I mean, you can take part of it, you can stop some of it, but frankly, if you're in the, and I'm not saying I wouldn't do the same thing. I mean, if I was in the 1% right now, would I be doing everything I could to insulate myself from any potential world conflict? And abso-freaking-lutely, of course. But I also probably then wouldn't be the right person to be allowed to make informed decisions about who we partner with and who we don't partner with, because obviously I would have a skewed interest in that, So I'm not blaming. I would absolutely, it's legal. Nothing, not saying anything illegal is happening, but yeah, if my company's well-being and my fortune were tied to continuing to sell to China, I'd probably be in favor of saying, let's go easy on China, take it easy on these guys. Of course.
Sure, if I'm selling $1 billion worth of products in China every year, I don't want to upset the Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lance would be a lot more, let's go to China, baby, if they were willing to write him a check for $1 million or $1 billion, that changes things, it changes things. And anybody that acts like it doesn't, you're crazy. So Lance, why do we have this show today?
Well, because here at True Chat, where we work, we have a mission. And that mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And hopefully you've enjoyed today's show. You share it with family and friends, and they say, well, you did a good job of sharing it, but I would like to listen to that show myself. So where can I find it? Tell them on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are found.
The State of Us releases new episodes as a podcast Tuesday and Thursday, first thing in the morning. Those same episodes heard on the weekends on AM and FM radio stations across the United States and parts of Canada. For The State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to producer Bradley Butch, and thank you all, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.